Speaker Gingrich, how are you?
I'm having a ball. How are you?
I'm trying to figure all this out because I'm hearing the Democrats and they're pushing the comprehensive reform a couple of months ago. Now it's just the DREAM Act, which would end up giving amnesty to at least 1.2 million, and as many as 2.1 if it was 35 years of age and younger. And then I'm reading your remarks from yesterday's forum, which I thought was a cool thing to do. You know, conservatives and Latinos have a lot in common. But in the forum, you said that some parts of the DREAM Act are useful, but you don't like the part that people who broke the law would be able to jump in the line. Well, what parts of the DREAM Act do you think should be passed?
Well, first of all, there's a provision in the DREAM Act which says if you serve in the American military, that you then have the same opportunity that anyone else who's a non-American has to apply for citizenship. I think anybody who today, if you're here outside the law, you cannot apply to the military. They can't accept you, and so you can't serve. But whereas if you're the exact same person who comes from Mexico, Guatemala, Ghana, Nigeria, you can. And I think it's legitimate to say if you're willing to go risk your life for 2 or 3 years for the United States to protect the United States, we're willing to consider you, allow you to apply for citizenship. Second, I think that people who go to the university or college, who get the kind of degrees that are the kind of human beings we want to have in our society, it's one thing to consider giving them a work permit as opposed to kicking them out. It's another thing to giving them citizenship. I think one of the difficulties that everybody has to face, and this is why I oppose what Harry Reid is doing. I mean, Senator Reid and President Obama and Speaker Pelosi are behaving as though there was no election. They're bringing up the same stuff, whether it's tax policy or immigration policy, as though the American people hadn't repudiated them. And that's wrong. I mean, if Reid wants to bring the DREAM Act up under an open debate, allow people to amend it, allow them to explain what's wrong with it, that's one thing. But if all he's doing is political posturing, as John Boehner said in a press conference yesterday, you have to really wonder why these people 2 years out are right back posturing instead of trying to get something positive done. I am opposed to any action which would grant citizenship to somebody who has broken the law before the people back home who obeyed the laws. And I think as we think through this whole process, nobody should be allowed to jump in line, because then what you're saying to people is, boy, you were really dumb. You stayed at home, you obeyed the law.
Well, Speaker Gingrich, I want to play for our audience something that you said at the forum yesterday. Let's listen.
We have to find policies that extend to every American, and that includes people who are not yet legal, every American, the opportunity to pursue happiness, the opportunity to have a work ethic, the opportunity to grow more prosperous. And we have to design a system in which it is more advantageous to be legal than to be illegal.
My question to you is, do you think that's really what people voted for on November 2nd? They wanted to give people who are not yet legal the chance to be prosperous in the United States?
I think what people voted for in November 2nd was an effort to, first of all, create jobs. Second,
for Americans, not for illegal aliens. With all due respect, Mr. Speaker. I mean, come on.
Well, let me finish, Laura. I don't think anybody anywhere in America, including Colorado, where it was a very clear test, has won any election advocating the idea that you can deport 11 million people.
That's a red herring and a phony argument.
Why?
I'm smart. Because nobody's arguing to deport them, but part of what the comprehensive reform is, you don't have to deport them, but you don't have to make them citizens and give them a right to vote, which is what most of the comprehensive reformers want to do. That's what.
But I'm not for comprehensive reform. Why are you attacking me for something I'm not for?
Well, because when I'm looking at some of your comments, when you say we have to, that was a very expansive comment, and I think it's good to have this conversation.
Well,
I'm a big fan of yours. I'm a big fan of yours. You know that.
Okay.
But when you say that people who are not yet legal, it sounds like what you want to do is create a path to citizenship for the people who are not yet legal. Now, if that's not what you're saying, then I'm happy to hear what you are saying.
No, I want to start with your position and work backwards. So you concede we're not going to deport 11 million people.
I think we can deport a lot of people, as we saw in Arizona. Right. When you enforce the laws, people actually start leaving the premises. But the problem is now, Republican elites... Well, hold on, Professor. Republican elites and Democrat elites have not been serious about enforcing this border. And I think you'll admit that. They've fallen down on the responsibility. It's a basic responsibility. If people understood that you couldn't cross this border, they wouldn't be coming here. They wouldn't be gaming the system. They wouldn't be using emergency rooms as health care. They wouldn't be taking up resources that hardworking Americans don't have. We're not serious about it, and we haven't been serious about it. Once we are, those people will go home. They'll self-deport.
But as Speaker, I helped pass the first control of the San Diego border with Congressman Duncan Hunter, which works perfectly for as long as it exists, but then runs out in the desert. I am committed to 100% enforcement of the border. I am committed to English as the official language of government. I am committed to no one getting citizenship ahead of people back home who obeyed the law and stayed back home and did the right thing. On the other hand, if you concede that under any imaginable plausible circumstance, there are going to be 3 or 4 or 5 million people who are not going to be deported. If there are 11 million people here, and that number may be high or low, the fact is, for example, a 19-year-old in Dallas, Texas, who came here at 3 years of age and doesn't speak very good Spanish is almost certainly not going to be deported. Well, how are you going to get him to be legal? Legality doesn't mean citizenship. It may mean a work permit. The Kriebel Foundation has done a very good job of creating what they call the red card solution. Jeb Bush has done a very good job of working on this topic.
I think Jeb Bush is disastrous on this. I'm sorry. I think Jeb Bush on this issue has lost the Republican base. I think there's going to be a major fight. The last time people tried to ram through this thing, it nearly destroyed the Republican Party, and it really hurt the Bush administration.
Laura, I'm not for ramming through anything. I'm for methodically trying to figure out step by step, and I'll go with you. Start with controlling the border. 100% control the border. I'm with you. Start with English as the official language of government. I'm with you.
9.8% unemployment, and we're worried about work permits for illegals. I'm sorry, 9.8% unemployment. My friends who are roofers and people who work on patios and decks, they're getting their jobs undercut every day by illegal workers. Every single day. I mean, you know that. I mean, you've written about this. You know this stuff. But I mean, that stuff has to stop.
But part of the reason that's happening is when people are illegal, they get cheated by employers who are greedy and willing to break the law. I want to draw a distinction between citizenship and legality. I favor a work permit program. Now, you may not favor this, and I'm going to ask you, so what are you going to do, even under your plan, what are you going to do about the 2 or 3 or 4 million people who are outside the law and are going to be here? I'm for deporting instantly every member of MS-13, which is a gang from El Salvador.
Last time I checked, they didn't sign up to be deported. I mean, yeah, well, everyone's for that. I mean, of course, we were all for that. But well, maybe not. But I bring this up, Speaker Gingrich, because I think we know that in this nomination fight that's coming up, the Tea Party movement, I think solid conservatives, people who've just been watching this, and I'm pro-immigrant. My daughter's Latina, okay? I'm pro-immigrant. I like the whole immigrant experience. There's nothing that makes me more patriotic than to see someone else being sworn in to become a citizen. But we have to enforce this law. We have to do that first. No work, self-deportation, come back. We can figure out our immigration system after we enforce this border. But I just think you're not going to get the support of the people unless we really see that border enforced. I
agree with you. I'm against comprehensive reform because I think the first thing we owe the American people is control of the border. I favored the Arizona law. I'm not opposed to it.
No, you were good on that.
I favor local officials being able to enforce immigration and help the federal government. So I'm the opposite of the Obama administration position.
Right, and Jeb Bush thinks the Arizona law, is unconstitutional. So I think you disagree with him on that as well.